Welcome to the coffee and tea with no coffee and tea this time because I literally ambushed Mark with the phone and the tripod and said, okay, we're doing this right now. We are in Virginia. We left our studio for those who are maybe watching this for the first time.
Yeah.
How long have you been in that studio?
The Benicia studio, approximately 33 years.
Yeah, well, about 30. We don't know really. He lost count, but
After 30, I lost
yeah,
count.
let's
Over
say
30.
about 30 years in Benicia in the same studio.
Yes.
And we moved just over a month ago to Richmond, Virginia. And we're currently in what is going to be Mark's new studio.
Yes. Yeah.
It has a hole in the ceiling. It's a test hole. And yes, we're waiting for contractors and so on to do a lot of work on this space so that Mark can have his new studio ready.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
And I wanted to pop in here and, as I said, ambush Mark because he's been just starting to put some drawings up on the wall that he's been doing in the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to talk a little bit with you about the transition. Everything, like a lot of life transitions, retiring, moving, new studio, new environment. How does that transition and adjustment, how is that affecting your art creative process and thinking, since you haven't been in the studio for many weeks now? How do you feel? How is it for an artist to be out of his or her
Out of commission.
element? Yes. How is that for you?
Right. Okay, so where to begin? It's been a major interruption. It took us really some months, if we're going to be honest, to prepare for the move from California to here. Very involved. Had a huge studio and living situation with many moving parts, lots of objects, furniture, etc. It was involved. Any move is involved, but this was a big one. Mm-hmm. Then the whole episode of locating and buying a home, etc. So really, I think that maybe the issue to speak to the artists out there is interruption of one's practice, mm-hmm. loss of momentum, mm-hmm. What that looks like and feels like, and how to move forward and how to navigate and how to deal with that. So I just accepted the fact that there was going to be an interruption in my studio practice. There was no way around it. Mm-hmm. Am I missing, and have I been missing my studio practice? Very, very much so. Now, I have two practices really. I have a drawing practice and I have the painting practice. They're separate. Mm-hmm. So I won't be able to get back to the painting until this upgrade of my studio takes place, hopefully by September, something or other. So very much looking forward to that. Mm-hmm. But the very moment that I had an opportunity to come into this studio, which is far from complete, I realized I can't paint yet, but I sure can draw. And I got back to what I love to do, which is to draw botanical forms. Mm-hmm. And because of where we live in this particular area, it's very verdant, it's very lush. There's an enormous amount of plant growth here. It was no-brainer to go out and find subject matter to work with. So the real answer to your question, Maria, is it feels joyful. It's been long awaited, overdue. But to be honest, I wasn't depressed about it. Mm-hmm. I knew
he did really well, remarkably well, because I know how Mark is if he's not in the studio. So there is something about the mental focus and tuning and just accepting, preparing, yes. Right? And, yes. And not to allow yourself to go into, as you say, depression and a funk, but just
take care of business. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not one of those artists, to be quite honest. There are artists who, even when I was where I was in Benicia, there are artists who work every single day. Mm-hmm. And they put in many hours every day. I admittedly am not that person. I work hard. I put in many hours in the course of a year, many days, many weeks, many months, but I also like living life. So I like going to the beach or take a walk or go take a trip somewhere. I don't need to be in the studio every single day. I'm just not that person.
Mm-hmm.
And I admit that, but it's not, I do it not as an admission. You know, I do it unapologetically because life is to be lived also. I could just as easily spend an afternoon in my easy chair reading a good book and be completely happy.
And I think that for you, it's of course that the creative process informs the creative process, but I
Yes.
think that for you, it's also very important that life informs the creative process and fills up your batteries and makes you want to come into the studio and work.
Very
Does that make
much.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So this change of environment, sounds, smells, light, all of it, do you think will change the way you work? What is your gut feeling, since you haven't been painting in the new studio, but what is your gut feeling?
Well, I do know one thing. As Maria said, we lived in an industrial area. I lived there for many years, 30 plus years. But there's a huge part of me that really needs to be in nature. And I used to be a landscape gardener. That's how I supported myself for many years and even did tree work. My point is, so we are completely surrounded by old trees that are really old and really tall, like over 100 feet tall. So I just look out my window and door right now. I am completely inspired with my new location. I mean, and to be able to go out into the yard and work the yard and to do some cutting and trimming and all of that is just, it's inspiring beyond words. So I'm in a brand new location. That's why I'm doing these drawings right now. I'm inspired by my surroundings and by nature, which I've always enjoyed. And even though leaving the studio in Benicia, California was daunting, and even though it was a little scary because big changes are always a little scary, I knew that once we got here and started to get settled that I would just love this new chapter. And I'm feeling very invigorated right now. I can't wait to see what happens with the paintings. But for now, the drawing is just heaven.
So we don't know if it's going to change the color scheme or
More greens.
more greens to be discovered.
To be discovered.
And that's fair. But I love that this is happening because he just comes back from a walk, or the other day we were driving and he just sees something and there it is. So I think already in a way it is affecting your studio practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the degree that you have the studio practice, which is drawing now.
Yeah, which is great. It's one of my loves.
And we've heard from people and even people that are friends and people that we haven't met but are in touch through social media and such, that artists have been migrating from California to the East Coast. Like we've heard of a few migrating from the East Coast to, like Arizona and other places. So artists are
In flux.
moving around and in flux, and that's interesting to me. Well, you have been stationary for a long time, but I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Like, what is it about artists and moving? Is it more artists than other people? What is affecting the move for artists?
Well, in our case, it was sheer economics.
Yeah,
Let's be
there's a
clear.
lot of that.
Let's be clear and honest. I mean, it was sheer economics. Plus, without getting into the details, our living situation as renters was becoming tenuous because of new owners, etc. It just felt unstable. The ground was kind of starting to shift. And artists are unfortunately used to having to pick up and go somewhere, to deal with that. It's not a mystery as to when and why and how artists have to kind of shuffle to the next place. I was lucky to have a great studio for all those years. But I do know, I'm thinking of good friends, Jeff and others who have left for a more, and not just economics, but a different lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
This is really a different lifestyle where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in many respects, without going into all the details, but it's very different, and it's more. I'm more at peace right now.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm retired and I have more time to do things, but we're busy in the house. But so yeah, I think artists need to have a sense that they're going to be okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that the ground underneath them is not trembling and shifting.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know that in certain cases that's what's happened.
And you told me once that your impression is that artists go to these places that are less inhabited, like places that are maybe a little funky,
Yeah.
you know, shabby, rough around the edges. And then usually it's the artists who go there first and then build it up and make it more livable and bring life into those and make it vibrant.
Yeah.
And then you have businesses trickling in, and then the real estate value goes up, the interest comes in, and so the artists are pushed out.
Yeah, it's a phenomenon that's been happening for decades. I call them the urban pioneers. So yeah, they're the urban pioneers. The artists typically, it's in every major city and even smaller cities. They'll go to the areas that are maybe a little more sketchy or industrial.
Because it's cheaper, right? It's more
Well, it's cheaper.
affordable.
They'll find the cheaper
There's
rents.
also something about it that I think attracts
lifestyle?
artists. Yeah, that lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which can maybe also have to do with age. Like, it's not the same when you're 30-some years old,
You can do that.
and then when you're, you know, in your
70.
60s, 70s, and so on, you're looking and needing something else.
Yeah.
Well, any, I don't know, any message of encouragement maybe for artists who are...
Transition.
Yes, and we have been actually on social media. I saw a couple of artists, you know, where their situation like ours was just coming to an end
Yes.
because, you know, other interests just came in, and so they had to evict, they had to leave their living or creative spaces. So I don't know, any...
Well, I do have a couple thoughts, if I might,
Okay.
to close this out with. The first thing that I want to say is that when we looked for a home, it was really clear I needed a studio space. So, you know, if you have to transition, of course you want to have a workspace. We were looking at everything from garages to big rooms within the house, and fortunately we found an outbuilding, but that's number one. You know, absolutely, you got to have your studio. But the other thing that's even kind of more important is the following. I could have waited to work in here until it's just right, you know, which will be some months away. And that's just kind of, it's not even procrastinating, it's just saying to myself, oh, I can't really do the work without the right environment. You know, the ceiling's too low here, the lights aren't right. There's all these reasons why we're going to hire someone to help us upgrade it. But that's not good. I mean, the very moment I had some time to get in here, I got in here. And I think that's important because sometimes artists do fall into that trap. They think, oh, you know, it's not perfect yet, it's not ready yet. And then the days turns into weeks and months, etc. So I would urge people to be careful about that.
Yeah. And maybe you need to change your medium or your format.
Exactly, keep it small. Work in a corner, for God's sake.
Simple.
You know, I'm working over in a tiny little corner of this space right now. I'm happy as a clown.
And I think you're already bringing the creative energy, you know, that good juju into the space. So get in there, and it's maybe not going to feel perfect or familiar in the beginning, but this is how it gets infused with those good energies and the creative juices. So why not start right away? And you were doing it in sketchbooks and drawings now. So okay, well, that's a good tip.
Carpe diem.
That's a good tip. Yes.
Seize the day.
So if you're transitioning, you know, in your life or in your workspace or in your living space or both, keep going, keep at it, even if you can on a smaller scale, and
keep your eyes on the prize always.
keep your eyes on the prize. Well, we just wanted to say hi from a new space before we get into the groove, back into the groove of creating these videos more regularly. We're thinking of you, we're preparing new things for you, so please either check the social media, so Mark's Instagram or website. The Instagram is Markeen's Studio, the website is markeens.com, very simply, and check out on what's coming around the corner.
And a new website that you helped create, which is Markeens Academy, which offers our
courses
our
are
online courses.
always there waiting for you. Yeah. All right. See you soon again.
Ciao.